Thank you.
We need our computer or.
That's fine. Yeah, it's not. You take pictures, video. That's fine. It's all.
Getting into that stuff,
What do y'all want into?
the AI. Hello, what?
I need to keep on to for Daniel.
Yeah.
Please, thank you. Some serious markers have been depleted on that thing. Sorry, here, next, let me the right stuff down.
I'm sitting far away, I need this charger.
I think you can grab her laptop, I'm gonna refresh her real quick. But I'm sure we'll have some more peeps popping in, but in the meantime. Before we jump into prompts and the fun stuff. For those of you that have either used AI, heard of AI, worried about AI, anything AI, what comes to mind as far as AI as it relates to real estate? When you hear that, what's it mean to you?
Very helpful.
Tell me more.
I mean, well, if you're not a good writer or if words don't come easy for you, it's like the cheat sheet of, the cliff notes of.
So more in like the marketing sense?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I would definitely agree with that. What else?
You can use research too.
Okay. What type of research? Obviously a lot, but specific to real estate.
Well, I haven't actually used it, but I just have heard that you can ask it just about anything and it'll spit out an answer, if you're looking for. Maybe not necessarily comps, but just some even quirky first.
I'll put research and analysis, because I can kind of show you some of what we do at a high level on using it to analyze. What else?
Intrusion and not privacy.
Well,
What? Increasing your privacy, it's intrusion of your privacy.
the good and bad news is they've already done that.
Oh, I know, but
Um,
I don't like it.
I don't either.
We're not using it.
I don't either, and for me, I just chose to make a conscious decision on. If they have it, they've already got it, and I'm gonna take that as an opportunity to try to harness it to do things that I don't necessarily enjoy doing. To do it faster, there's a few different settings and things you can play with that maybe would preclude some of that, but just, maybe it's just my laissez-faire. I try not to ever take a laissez-faire approach, but in this essence of the world or corner of the world, I kind of have, because it's like, it's all out there, right? And if they want it, they can take it. So yes, there can be pieces of that. You can control what you put in. Certain models that we'll use, we use paid versions. So that it does have more of an open source option, so there's more data at our disposal, but also we can use that as an opportunity to kind of train it on things that we ask for. So like, we use ChatGPT primarily, there are some language models in there that you can turn on that allow it to learn based off of my operating style, my communication style, things that I give it or feed it and ask it. And he can probably get into more of the nuts and bolts on like the why of it, but what I've understood about the way I've used it is I can revert back to conversations I've had with it and get it to pull findings or results from other things based on what I've told it to do in the past. So I've kind of taken it as like I'm training a computer to think like I do, which is kind of scary, but at the end of the day, if I'm not doing it, somebody else is. So that's just been my kind of, I guess, my caving into just, it is what it is, right? Something else I would add to that, like we talked about assistance in marketing, specific to like, certain language patterns or writing styles. You can actually use it to read contract.
Will you review that today, because I don't, you have the paid version though, right, so you can upload.
You can still use it to do some of these things on the free version, absolutely.
Inspection reports.
Yeah. Anything else that you've heard about people using it for, want to know how to use it for?
Basically, I see it's like using it to autonomize your systems.
All right, unpack that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
Like the small things, the little tasks that maybe take a long time for you to fill out manually and stuff like that. I've seen people use the AI, like maybe for like your calendar or something like that. Just to help you stay more organized and efficient with your time.
Yeah, there's probably some apps out there. One I can think of is a popular one called like Slack.
Right.
Now, I don't know if too much of today, unless Sherry's got something else in mind that will be talking about that will like necessarily automate certain things, but it will provide you leverage in a sense of like material to automate per se, like for example, the assistance in marketing, like I don't know where that came from at the beginning of class with language patterns or the writing styles, but something as basic as like taking command or whatever database that you're currently using. And if you're, wanting to send these people something, but you don't know what, that's a good place to start, like somewhere like ChatGPT, because you can ask it specifics. Like I've taken it from like a first time home buyer. What are the like pertinent things they should know? What about the process? What about the financials? Da 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 da. Okay, then it'll take that and I'll prompt it with, create a 12-week email campaign. Geared towards first time home buyers. And then it'll create an outline and then I have it create an email template for each specific week. Now it's just a matter of copying and pasting that onto like the command platform or whatever the case may be. And then once you've got that, you can take the sellers, so forth and so forth, sell by owners, expires. You can, gear that marketing effort towards really whatever lead source you want it to, or type of person in your database, whether it be sphere, first time buyer, selling and buying, whatever the case.
One of the small ones I use is generating the hashtags on your posts.
There you go.
That's relevant
Yeah.
hashtags.
Oh, it'll even write marketing remarks for you for listening.
That's my favorite.
Mhm.
You could upload a photo and it will write the remarks just for the photo.
Yeah, sometimes it'll do it if you just punch in an address.
It's gonna take a minute, my phone's in the middle of rebooting. I'll give you some examples, of some things that you can do with it, right? So, to Dustin's point, can everybody see the screens? I know I've got this here, can everybody see the screen itself? So, something that we may, run across is like, okay, I've done an inspection. So, this will be more generic, but you can see how you can take it, and it's almost like an ideal launch pad for me. Because then I can take this wide funnel or question and start whittling it down to exactly what I want it to be. But let's just say, what are the most commonly, if I can type,
Commonly what?
I'll read it in just a second.
Okay.
Maybe a little zoom on that too. Top right corner, where control. Scroll wheel.
So,
Now, full disclosure, is it gonna give you 100% accurate information that you should just copy and paste? No. Definitely proofread it. Sometimes, depending on what you're trying to get out of it, it'll take some, we'll call it molding. Give it some background information if it seems off on, something. On the paid version, I don't know about the free version at the current moment because, they do updates all the time, but. With the paid version, one thing that I've done is, export MLS data into it for like an analysis. Saves a lot of work on my end, of course. That way I don't have to punch it into like a spreadsheet, Microsoft Excel and try to find my way around. Because I'm not formally trained on Excel, self-taught, so I don't really know the full functions that get some of these higher level analysis, but ChatGPT does.
I don't understand. So what are you getting back when you're doing that?
whatever you tell it. Not being a smart aleck, but like.
No, but
you-
I mean,
you'll
you're
know.
talking about the analysis, like.
Yeah, so let's say, for example, we'll use the most recent example we use it for, so. We had some townhomes that we inherited in Georgetown, and we're needing to provide, suggestions around price. But instead of us giving our opinion, which our opinion was they're overpriced, but as well as anybody in the room, sellers don't just want to hear that, they want to know why it's overpriced, right? So what we're able to do is take historical data. And then we identified the key points we wanted to hone in on. Are they more valuable with a first floor master? What is the typical square foot or price per square foot historically that things have sold for?
Layout.
So we can take a huge amount of data, upload it in the system and start asking it questions based on that data. So now no longer he and I are spending 8 hours reviewing 40 sheets of information and trying to find it. We tell it what to go find and it pulls it. Now, you can take that 100 different ways, but let's put a pin in that and we can come back to show you what that looks like. I've got a few things pulled up. So this, well, and that's the thing to know, like, this thing can go,
Be careful.
it can go as rabbit hole as you want it to, right? And that's what I mean by be careful, because you can go down a huge rabbit hole with trying to find certain things. So just to give a quick and dirty around something that I would ask it, everybody see that okay? So it says, what are the most commonly asked questions by a home buyer when reviewing the home inspection report during a residential real estate transaction? And the thing to note is just how quickly this thing moves, right? So it's immediately kicking out, when a home buyer reviews a home inspection report, they often have questions, help them understand potential issues and their implications. Here are some of the most commonly asked questions. Now, where this stuff's coming from, I can't give you the precise answer, but to Dustin's point earlier, and what I was getting at was like, this is a launch point for me. So like, if I'm thinking about creating, let's say like a brochure or a pamphlet or something digital that I can give a home buyer, hey, you're about to receive your home inspection report. These are most commonly asked questions, right? So that may pull some things that they may be having in their mind, because what do we know about most commonly about our clients? They don't ask what's out in their mind. I have to pull it out of them. Unless it's, there's certain types that'll just tell you everything they're thinking, which is fine too. But I like to also kind of have some organization in that conversation. So if I want to organize that conversation, so like what I try to do is think about what are the biggest pain in my butt moments during a transaction. I would argue home inspections are probably the top, right? Because everybody perceives them differently. Every home inspector reports differently. Everybody has their own grading scale of what's a problem, what's not. So you kind of have to know how you tend to handle those things, but then you can take this and kind of iron out that process some.
And it's going back to bold a little bit too, you know, focusing on what you can control about, you know, each and everything that you do, you know. We're involved in the transaction process, so like, what can we control as it relates to inspection? We can't control necessarily who inspects it, what software they use, and what that report looks like. All that we can really control is our client's expectations, right?
So I'm pulling up a report, but I'll show you why I'm doing that in just a minute. Okay, so here's some of the questions. All right. What are the major concerns and the deal breakers in this report? Buyers want to know if any issues are severe enough to reconsider or renegotiate the purchase price. What are the immediate repairs or safety concerns? What are the estimated costs of repairs? Understanding the costs helps buyers decide if they need to negotiate repairs or adjust their offer. Are there issues? Are these issues common for a home of this age? Great question, right? So again, like, I'm using this to pull questions that I might not even have thought of to bring up with my customer, right? We just had a conversation about a final walkthrough that Dustin and another agent on our team attended this morning. The buyer was throwing a fit over some caulking around some windows, right? The first question I asked, well, how old's the home? And it's an older unit, right? How are the windows in that home? Have they looked at other homes that are similar in age and similar windows to see if those windows have caulking issues? Probably, right? So again, thinking about some of these scenarios that become the pebble in your shoe, and then having some content, right? Because I think the one thing I've taken away through some of our trainings that we've had lately is the only reason there's really ever issues is because there's either questions I haven't answered or education I haven't provided to the client to help them get from where they're at to where they ultimately want to be, which is most commonly purchasing or selling their home, right? And so taking that same thought process and drilling down on whatever the issue is. So again, this just spit out 10, 11 pieces of information, right? So based on that, it says addressing these questions helps buyers feel informed and confident, supporting smoother negotiations and decision making. Some of the ones we need to talk about, which issues can wait, which ones require prompt attention, how do these issues affect the home value or resale potential. So now, what I want to do is go in here, y'all saw me download the inspection report from that most recent home inspection. And it's just a live demo. I don't know what the heck's gonna happen. I've not done this, but I'm just showing you how you can play around with this to do whatever you want it to do.
Before maybe you do that, I was gonna suggest maybe you punch in the contract and extract the inspection section of that contract.
I can still do that. I'll do that after I do this.
Because,
So you'll notice how I'm talking to it too. You can talk to it like it's working for you.
yeah,
It's your assistant. So I'm gonna tell it to review the tag home inspection report. And how I want to phrase this. Analyze based on the key items you just described
Yeah,
for me to review with the home buyer.
right.
So it's read the document. That's a 50-page document. You'll notice how quick it read it. It's already giving me answers. So let's take a look.
Well,
This is pulling it,
major concerns / deal breakers. Those are the most pertinent ones we want to focus on, right?
and I can already tell you from having negotiated it, we negotiated all three of these things. So in a matter of moments and just analyze the 50-page document based on what it told me were high priority items. So how much time did I just save? Now, I'm old school. I read the report line by line. I circled it to find the items because I had trust issues with tech. Kind of the Sherry's point earlier, right? Like, not so much on the invasion of privacy, but maybe the accuracy piece, right? Like, is it accurate? And so what I think is neat about this is now I can review this because I've already done my own research and see is there anything that it left out. So for instance, there was, so I was getting ready to say major concerns and deal breakers, but in immediate repairs and safety concerns, there was a leak in the half bathroom there when he was testing it. And we requested that it be repaired and they already repaired it, but it's already hit it, moisture intrusion. There's an active leak noted in the half bath. Several signs of previous leaks were found in the crawl space in the rooms. These should be addressed to prevent further damage. Loose toilet, low porch railings, cost estimates for repairs. How nice would it be on some of these if I already knew which ones to get estimates for, right? And then what I would do to take it a step further is I got my vendors list. In a list already, I can upload that and say, hey, based on the items you told me to get cost estimates for, can you single out the subs and trades I need to contact based on what's in here? And my report's broken out by plumbers, roofers, structural, general contractors, painters, whatever. So if I know those issues, it's telling me I need to get costs, I can upload that and say, hey, pull the names from my vendor list that I need to call and get estimates from. And it'll take it and it'll just give it to me there. I can copy and paste that. Now here's something to kind of show you what you can do as a kind of a formatting thing. But you can see, it's already said, negotiable items with the seller repairs, requesting seller assistance, directing further lead foundation issues, cross-based issues, credits. It's already talking about credits, right? So what if I just did this? I don't know what it's gonna give me.
You know, I'd say, in order of priority, provide estimates.
So based on the items in the summary, can you give an order of priority and a ballpark cost on repairing the items noted? Now, this is the part that I may not agree with based on whatever pricing it gives, but it's a starting point.
What was the, did you provide any credits on this one or getting credits?
I'm curious to see, because I already know what it costs on some of these. Pretty close. So it's estimating the cost.
Thank you.
So the cost of evaluation items, repairs, 37,000. I thought I got it anyway, I'm smart, Gary. They good?
Yeah.
Now see if it was smart, it would have told me I didn't move that board. Cost-based evaluation and repairs, 37 grand depending on repair needed for the vapor barrier installation joist adjustments. Now, what I would take out of that is in the quotes that I'm getting, now I can copy and paste this and say, hey, when you go out on site. Let's just, well, instead of me doing it, why don't I just tell it to do it?
I think one of the cool things is you can go like it's big or it's small if you need to, like even if it's like. How do I make a drip campaign on Flex MLS?
Yeah.
Like very specific stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You can't get that from like Google or anything like that.
And that's one of the biggest things I've noticed the difference, because I was early Google adopter, always curious. Anytime I didn't know something, I go to Google. You know, to the point where people would goof me about it, right?
Now check this out. So the prompt I gave you, here's what's nice, if you don't like the prompt you gave, you can always work backwards. And just say, hey, in reference to the last prompt I gave you, let's make this adjustment, right? So I asked it, can you pull these sections of the report and the pertinent photos for each item and pair with your previous listed you provided. Now I misspelled it there, but it still knew what I was asking for. So in the crawl space, the summary, the photos, the repair costs. So if I click this, let's see what it's gonna give me. Did it?
Last time I did this, it just gave me the whole report.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what you can do though,
we're not asking it, right?
yeah, it's giving me the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I can go down through each one, and now if all I wanted to do was print this, I can copy and paste it, print it, and then I just gave myself my quick action items to make sure I'm not gonna miss anything. Now, let's say it did miss something. I don't know that it did. I can go in here and say, hey, on number 2, where you mentioned plumbing leaks and issues, I noticed in the report it said blah, blah, blah. Can you include that? So let me show you my prompt for how I'm gonna shift gears for a minute out of the home inspection. We can pop back in this, because here's the nice thing. With the paid version, it saves all my stuff on here, so I can always go back and redo it. But like, here's one from last night, so I'll tell you all the really details on what my last 6 days has looked like on the family front, but I've had a house full of sick people, and I haven't had a ton of time. So I've been isolating myself in blocks of time to try to get stuff done. Thank God for this, because it makes things more simpler.
Well, real quick too, on the inspection part of things, like you can take that, you know, before or after you have that conversation with the buyer, after you review the report, and they know what they want to request the seller to take care of. If you're eating like me, you don't know how to start some of those, like repair this or that, it'll do it for you. Draft up an inspection agreement form with said items requested that the seller repair requests. Then it just provides you that, copy and paste it onto the inspection agreement form on dot loop, and you're done. So like, how much time already do you feel like you could save using something like this? Right, a couple hours, maybe 10 hours a month, 20 hours a month. What's the cost? $20, $25. Probably worth it. You know, I'm not one that the first answer to a problem is throw money at it, but like for something so minimal that you can leverage so greatly, it's hard to not justify if you know how to use it. Now, you don't, you know, you may want to get familiar with the free version first and foremost, but again, this comes after the priorities, right? Lead generation, lead follow up. Like, don't get in here and spend 4 or 5 hours a day, because it's easy to.
So based on what he just asked, and you'll notice while he's asking stuff, I can pop over here and start typing, right? So the time he made his statement, I just said, based on these items listed, can you prepare a repair request list for us to present to the seller's agent? Here's your repair request list. Crawl space request, address crawl space moisture by repairing properly installed vapor barrier, missing insulation, floor joist positioning. Additionally, remediate foundation wall efflorescence and seal crack to prevent further water intrusion. Suggested seller action. So I don't know about you guys, but I run into this a lot because I've been plagued with a little bit more knowledge about construction than probably I could have ever cared to have been. It's a blessing and a curse. Blessing in that I typically can answer questions that maybe some people may have a harder time with. Curse in that oftentimes I make a request, I send it to the seller's agent. Most agents and their client don't know what I'm talking about. So then I end up having to further explain it. So for me, this is taking what I typically end up having to do and helping that agent understand, okay, now that I've been given this information on what's wrong with the property, what do I do with this? Right? So the reason I mentioned earlier about my vendors and my subs and my trades kind of going into like a transaction management piece, when I have a buyer and we have a report like this, during my due diligence window, which typically I'll try to stretch out to 14 days, especially now that on the new contract, those need to be not only identified, but negotiated and agreed upon. This takes time, right? Time is my most precious resource. So utilizing the tools, I can quickly, in a matter of 30 minutes, figure out what's wrong, what do I need to take further evaluation on, who needs to do it, and when are they going to do it. So now my only thing I have to do is take this, make my 7 or 8 phone calls, schedule those out, go ahead and get my bids. Well, what's the nice thing I can do with the bids?
I can upload them in here. Hey, for all the items, and I don't even have to tell it which one it's for, because it's gonna read it. So here's my 9 quotes I got based on those 9 items. Can you formalize that in one clean document? Boom, puts all 9 bids. I want you to pair that with all the things that you told me is wrong with it. Now, put that in one singular document, and all I gotta do is pop it in the dot loop, have my folks initial it, make it an addendum to the repairs list, and in the repairs list, I would just say, please see attached adjoining report, invoices, and the buyer requests the seller to repair, all attached. Quick. Took me a matter of, what we've been in here, 15 minutes doing this? That would take me hours. Hours. Now, I still chose to read it because I cared to know, is there anything it's gonna miss? But the nice part about it is, I'm teaching this while I'm going through it. So I can go in and kind of save this and pull back, and it's already learned some of the stuff I've asked it to do, so I can reference those other things, because now I've created a little library of resources for this thing to get smarter. But case in point, I have a full-blown repair request list. Now, it's telling me that total repair about 11.8, that's just a benchmark, right? Now what I can do if I don't trust it, because I told you earlier I have trust issues, I can get my own bids, and I can compare to say, hey, this is what it costs. Now, what I would do in that, if I had more time, is I would upload all those and say, hey, this is what you told me you thought these things cost. Based on my research and my quotes and my estimates, this is what all those items cost.
Now, what you could also do is ask it to provide you a range of estimated costs, a low and a high.
So, and it'll base it off stuff that it can find. Let me pause on home inspection, just walk you through something I did yesterday. So I had a property that I got a contract on. And what's the number one thing your seller asks you when you tell them you got an offer?
How much? What is it?
And what do you typically tell them?
The price?
Well,
Well, I mean, sorry, I was playing along.
yeah, perfect world, what would you tell them?
Great off.
Maybe like, hey, Mr. Seller, from my experience, it's not always all about price. Do you care if I tell you more about that? Well, what do you mean, Sheridan? Well, there's intangibles in the contract that might not necessarily be monetarily tangible or fungible. Would y'all agree with that? Terms, conditions, sometimes don't show up in price. So what I've used this for most commonly is, okay, I want to create an executive summary of the offer I had, because how many times have y'all sent that 11.5-page doc over to somebody and they're like, well, what's it mean? I ain't gonna read it. They don't. It sucks, but they don't. You know what they do read? Summaries, cheat sheets, cliff notes. Everybody wants cliff notes, myself included. So I'll try to take that same strategy and implement it when I'm presenting an offer. So yesterday, offer in, share offer over to seller. Hey, take a look at it. And also in your email, you'll notice a summary I created breaking down what's in that offer, the most important things for you to know. Now, obviously, the terms and everything in there is going to be important for them to read. We all know they don't. Or most of them don't.
It's hard to find
Better than most.
right? If you don't look at that contract often, it's hard to find all those key details.
So here's what I did. I downloaded the multiple documents out of my dot loop. Offer to purchase, there was contingency form, pre-approval, seller disclosure. So we'll call it just a true full offer packet, which we all should submit when we submit an offer, right? This agent chose to do it the right way, sent me everything. I downloaded it. I said, attached is an offer that my seller received from a buyer's agent on behalf of their buyer they're representing. I represent the seller in this transaction. Notice I'm positioning it for where it needs to be thinking from. It's need to be thinking like me. I probably tell it too much sometimes, but I'd rather tell it too much. It can throw out all my frivolous BS that I include and get the core nuts and bolts of what I'm asking it. I need an executive summary of the attached documents to present to the seller and give them a glimpse at the offer to purchase their property from the buyer. Please create this in a table format, organizing the format of the attached, where it can be easily reviewed and discussed internally. That's a word salad. That's how I operate. But here's what it gave me. Here's a summary table. Property address. This is without me asking it to do anything crazy. Property address, buyer's name, purchase price, loan info, earnest money, closing costs covered by the seller, closing date, contingencies, pre-approval status, due diligence and inspection, appraisal and financing, HOA info, seller disclosure, other considerations. So, see where I asked it? Now I tested some. Well, what about the appraisal order deadline? Can we add that in before the due diligence round? Well, sure we can, Sheridan. Appraisal order deadline shows up. Within 7 days of the effective date. Now, those of you that have worked in the contracts know that is now a field on the new that they put a field in. Well, it missed it. It was actually 14 days. I said, that's wrong. Look back on the contract and see the deadline they gave right above the due diligence deadline, how many days that is. It still didn't believe me. So again, this is some of that trial and error. So what I asked it to do, I said line 52 in the contract says 60 days on appraisal order. Again, please review that for future needs. Thank you for clarifying. I've noted that the appraisal order deadline is 60 days. In this contract, it's specified on line 52. I said update the table because it didn't send me an updated table. Well, I'll be happy to do that. Appraisal order deadline, 60 days. So I went ahead and changed it. Closing date needs to be updated to between 30 and 90 days from effective date. But again, I know these things because I've read it top to bottom. So now I'm just coaching it on what to do. It's my assistant. Hey, fix this. You missed that. Do this. Sometimes you can say it's a pain in the butt, but if it's not doing it, then who is? Right? So,
Cause you're doing it in enough time that like, it would have took you to dissect it, put it in a spreadsheet, make it look, pretty to put in the email to.
this took me I'm probably 3 minutes in at this point. Now, I probably had 10 minutes in reviewing that contract. I made my own notes, because remember, I have trust issues. I made my own notes, and you all know what things to look for in the contract, the same stuff you always do. But I'm using this as a chance to just create what takes me, I prefer not to like putting everything in a cute little form. It's just not my thing. And I'm not gonna trouble somebody in my world to do that if this does it, right? Because chances are, if this is during work hours, I probably wouldn't send this to my lovely girlfriend in the back.
Yeah.
And say, can you make this look good? But guess what? We talk about time's most precious resource, right? Well, now not only have I given myself some time back, who else did I give time back? She can do things that are more important to keep moving the business forward, not doing this, right? So when you start thinking about dollar per hour activities, well, we just said this cost me $20 a month. What am I paying this thing an hour? Pennies? Percent, tenths of pennies? I don't know, based on how much I use it. So again, I'm just letting it do some of the stuff that normally are done by another human. I'm driving, but again, now it spits this back out. I said, on the closing cost, please make it say up to $7,000 paid on behalf of the buyer by the seller at time settlements. And you'll notice that in the closing cost line, it went ahead and put that in there as I asked it to. So again, I'm just preparing this without preparing it. This now reflects it. So what did I do? Once I had that, I downloaded the offer, the packet. I screenshotted the summary, I sent it to their email, and in the body, I put the summary. I said, here is the summary of the attached. Now, my guy's analytical, he's gonna read all the attached. Most people wouldn't. Most people pop right there on the summary. Now, the other nice piece about that is, I can get on the phone with him, I got the summary pulled up, and I can go through it. Hey, you'll notice boom, 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 boom. Now, this is especially nice when you have multiple offers. Because if this is the bane of your existence, then curating 4 of them is gonna put you 6 feet under, at least it would me. So then I can take it and I can say, hey, here's all the offers, put them out side by side. So we actually ended up getting another offer while negotiating this one. It wasn't a great offer. I said, all right, I want the same format used in the last prompt, but ran on this offer I'm attaching. So it read through the whole prompt. I put the new offer in and it spit this out. Second offer. And I said, update the closing cost to 0 because I don't believe not specified this offer. So instead of saying not specified, because what my seller might ask is, well, what are we paying? Well, if I already know it's 0, just change it to 0. Right? Closing cost to 0, spits that back out. I went ahead and just put into it with match formatting. I knew who the pre-approval was from, so I sent the pre-approval. They updated that. Due diligence and inspection is to be completed within 10 days. And doesn't include the option for the buyer to submit a repair request list. They use their old contract, so again, old and new. I can still put it in the same summary because they're saying the same thing. They just use 2 forms to tell me what they're willing to do, right? So it spits back out, boom, boom, boom. Purchase order deadline updated and unspecified, typically ordered after inspections are complete. right? That's a me thing, it's in my head, but I can go ahead and use it to tell it what I, tell them what I want to tell them. Boom, now it's telling. Now. Using both of the final tables from each respective offer, place them in a side-by-side comparison for me to present to my seller. Shoot.
You may wanna add table for comparison.
That is just mind blowing.
It is.
I'm pretty neat, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I can't even believe that.
How long would that have taken us? I mean, we're all here doing it together, right? And then I'm like, hey, bro, you take columns 1 through 5, Donna, you take 6 through 10, you take 11 through 15, she takes 16 through 20, I'll take 21 through 25, and you have 26 through 30. We would still be working on it from the time we walked in here.
Wouldn't look as good either.
Well,
So, I mean, there's obviously opportunity for improvements on this.
Which it will.
And it will, because it'll keep getting better because more people are using it. But the way I look at it is if it's even 50 to 60% as good as what I could do, because I'm a perfectionist. Emma probably wants to hit me over the head sometimes because I throw the biggest fits over the littlest things, you have to look a certain way. But once I forfeit to the idea that it has to be perfect, and as long as it gets the point across, I get all my time back. So now, in a matter of, what'd that take? 30 seconds? Now I can pop those side by side, send it to my seller and say, hey, in your email, you've got an executive summary of both offers. Let's review them. And we can go through each one. Now, what I like is because I typically have multiple screens, there's nothing keeping me from having this up in the background. So if he's got questions, that's a great question. Let me add that. While he's talking, I can say, hey, the seller asked me a question about this. Can you create a row that has this? Boom, 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 boom. Spits it out. New screenshot. Boom. Throw it in the chat. Hey, I'm so glad you asked that. In a matter of 30 more seconds, while he's talking, I've updated it and it's back in the thread with us. Now we can go back and say, hey, I'm glad you added that. Boom. Otherwise, I'm scrambling my papers. Let me find a contract. And you flip to the page. It's all right there. So I just got to be thinking, how can I tell this computer to move, which moves faster than I do, to go do what I needed to do? Look, that's just a quick and easy example for one use study for it.
I mean, we wrote down an inspection on one, provided summary details, cost estimates to a buyer. And we've done a multiple offer summary analysis in what, 30 minutes?
30 minutes tops.
Take 2 hours minimum, sometimes days, even to get some of those estimated costs in, right? How many people are involved in all that?
And so I think about like the use cases for this, obviously those are two hyper specific, right? But the number one thing I think that I see most individual agents struggle with is like, where do I spend my time doing what? Because if you're an individual agent, you're the whole show. You're this, your marketing, your sales, your customer service, your HR. So leverage some of this stuff to be able to get that off your plate and go do what allows you to get more of these opportunities, right? So that's where people may think we're crazy for doing it, but he and I had finally realized like we're hitting there's something that everybody calls like a natural ceiling of achievement, right? Everybody's got one, and you can only go so far without additional systems, tools, and people. Well, I've got tools, I have people, and if I can create the system, now I can just start shoving information in there and it's gonna pull it. Now, let me see if I can show you one. Did you do this online? Are these you?
yeah.
All right. Let's look back at the prompts. So she uploaded photos. I think you all mentioned this earlier. Emma's put in 5 photos, right marketing mark for a 1.5 story home, basically 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, first floor primary suite, gas wall, fireplace, 2-story living room. So again, if you're ever not feeling Shakespearean, which I never do, And Emma was laughing the other day, go ahead.
And this is me, like, I'm doing other things too, trying to get this listing up in the middle of doing other stuff, so I'm just like randomly, like, I don't even think my paragraph that I wrote makes sense or is in order. And I should just said, make it sound better.
And she said, give pictures of inspiration, needs to be 1,200 characters total, because that's how many characters they give us, right? So instead of me trying to think, oh crap, what words can I peel out, or can I use an ampersand instead of the word and, you know, I mean, all those things that we've driven ourselves nuts on, trying to fit in that stupid box, now it does it for me. And then she doesn't like something in there, she can say, hey, instead of this, can you say that, right?
There's a couple that I have done that on.
Let's look at her ones for fun. So she's trying to pull some stuff because we're under the premise, at least Emma is, and I completely agree. I never thought about it until Sydney's on social media more than I am for like entertainment. And so she's like, Emma's been putting out like hilarious captions, which made her happy because she was under the belief that nobody read captions. But for us, our thing was, let's just start putting some stupid comments up there or funny comments that maybe somebody would read it and be like, it's a test for us to see A, are people reading it, but B, provide a little bit of relief to the timeline that typically just gets picture a house, boilerplate marketing stuff, people just read over it.
It's a pattern stuff.
So she just said 20 open house Instagram captions, boom, she's got them, and it's got emojis. Man, how cool is that?
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily used all those, but I used
Well,
the,
get your wheels turning though, right? I mean, you might find something that you like. Well, the other day we had Hurricane Helene, she said we had a boatload of open houses. I mean, just something silly. I need a boat to get to them, so she put it on there. So, I mean, just little stuff that lets you, again, don't have to feel like you have to create all that, it's just there. Let's do a live demo. This is, I wasn't planning on this, but let's just think of something that somebody needs to do today that would make your life easier if it were done while you're sitting in this class. Hit me. What's something you're like, shit, I gotta do this when I leave. I don't wanna do it.
Well, I had a Google form, it was the doc that I couldn't alter for my 5-day
Yeah.
presentations, so I was trying to do it in the chat GPT,
Yeah,
and I couldn't figure out how to, they gave me it changed, you know, the wording and stuff, to the right date and all that stuff, but it didn't include the pictures and all the other stuff that I had on.
so I do know that there's a Canva plugin, if you use Canva,
Oh, okay.
that you can pull that in. And so you could upload that, and then using Canva, it uses, I'm not sure, she's messing around with it some, but what, I think somebody mentioned earlier, I think you all were talking about calendar some. What I'm starting to see, because I subscribe to a lot of these tech newsletters and AI specific newsletters, is all these huge companies are starting to adopt AI in some form, like Grammarly.
Yeah.
I use the Grammarly one, and it's crazy, the plugin, it'll start using that, so to that note, unfortunately, I've not found one that's like all encompassing, does everything, but I've found ways that it can get me 90% there and then pump and then pull it from other places.
Is the Canva add-on, is it in chat or is it?
I think that they sync from what I read.
Oh.
Now, I did some double check, because I've not spent enough time researching, but I read something the other day.
Yeah, but I'm like, that would have been, made my life so much easier, would have been.
Yeah, and listen, like, I know we're talking about the invasion of privacy piece. This might be one of those scenarios to your advantage because it does read those things. Is to just say, hey, I really wish you all did this. Right? So it's funny, the other day we had something with our CRM that I really didn't like or agree with. And so I just sent a very open, transparent message to the CRM customer service. We have like our own assigned success person or whatever you call them. And I was like, you know, for the amount of money we spend, I think that it ought to have this feature. And then I looked up on my Apple Store, whatever, when it updated, and it updated to include that template, right? And that's just a very small example, but they are paying attention to what people ask it for. And I think kind of like what, if y'all remember early on in Command when they had the ideas thing, like I would be shocked if they weren't taking some of those things and putting them in there and using the same thing of like, hey, based on all these votes or requests, how can we start implementing some of those things? So to that end, I would say still ask it, and then like I'll subscribe to the newsletters and stuff that'll send me when they're putting out updates and things, but that would be interesting to see how long it would take, because I think if you ask for it enough, like we just talked about in our team meeting, the squeaky wheel normally gets the grease. So the more I can ask for something, it might show up.
I didn't go back and ask it to add the pictures, maybe they would.
Could have. What's one? Emma, what's something, I know you got things you're working on, what's something we can do while we're sitting here?
I'm working on listing feedback for sellers,
Listing what?
listing feedback for sellers
Okay. How would you do that?
with a
You would
template.
need the data for the feedback.
What about if I did one on Flex? You wanna do one of the comp ones?
One of the what?
The comp ones?
Gonna take a minute. You got to export it, download it, upload it.
Let me just try one. Alright, let's pick an address.
1276 Ames Trail.
114 Johnston.
Yeah, I'm
that-
working Dustin. I'm
Just
doing
give us
Dustin.
all 3305.
I should do that.
Alright, I'm going to print this.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. You're gonna take that and then take the showing time?
I'm gonna play around some. Y'all bear with me, this is a live lab.
The one that we did on AVP, was pretty neat, because we had a whole lot of showings over there. So what we did- What we did was, we took the MLS listing for Andover Village Place, we took the activity report from showing time. You know, with all the showings, all the feedback, put it in the chat GPT, had it evaluated for a seller summary so that we could provide them an email. And then I took the CMA search that I did, if you've been to that class, you know what I'm referring to. I took that, exported it from the MLS, put it in that same GPT and asked it to not only provide a summary of activity that we've had on the listing, but also an activity in the market around that listing and that price point. So it pointed out, you know, what was selling, what wasn't selling, the activity we've had, the commonalities in that feedback from people that had showed the property. And then, you know, I took it another step, going back to that Canva conversation. I can't remember what this software was, but I had it take that summary and put it into a video to provide that seller, because, you know, a lot of words on the screen, sometimes tough to kind of read and digest. So, you know, most everybody can watch a video, especially if it has a caption at the bottom. So that was kind of neat. And I don't know if that's what he's going after. I wonder if I still have that video.
Maybe, let me just show you something I'm playing around with. So, let's just say, for example, you got a listing that is maybe taking a little longer than you wish it had, right? So what I can do, and this is where you can start extrapolating some data. But if I wanted to go back to houses in Lexington between 250 and 300. Single family, active coming soon, pending contingent closed, veterans of 3. Let me just go a step further. What's the zip code on that? 15. Alright, that's an easier list to work with. Alright, so I just pulled a CMA based on that. So what I also like to do is include pictures. And it should let me do that, right? With additional pictures. I have the report. Alright, so I've got the map, I've got the subject, I've got the search. Okay. So let's print this as a CMA. Alright, and then. Print it as a PDF, save it. So I'll come back over to Chat GPT. So I just uploaded the listing and we're gonna use the subject property.
So wait a minute, you've uploaded that whole thing, you just,
Not yet,
okay,
I'm about to.
okay.
So the first thing I uploaded was just the one pager for the listing that we're gonna call the subject property. And I just said, here's the subject listing we were gonna discuss, it went ahead and spit me out the summary. So then I can go in here, now those comps I didn't do a manual audit on, but let's just pretend that I had, and they're all sufficient. So I set the comps based on what I wanted.
PDF.
I just did the CMA. But I'm curious if it'll read it as fast as it does the CSV.
You'll be less data though, but it's all right.
So this is a kind of intuitive question. Now, I'm not expecting it to know everything that I do or have been in all these houses. But I downloaded the summary, right? And let's just pretend, for example's sake, that I've already audited the comps, and those are comps that I feel are justifiable, right? There's 25 of them. I've uploaded just the CMA that we would maybe use when presenting, when we initially had that conversation. And I've asked it, based on the attached comparative market analysis, what can you tell me about why the subject property may have not sold yet? So you can go in and make some of these edits, but again, this is just based off all the data you're given. So it's gonna give you some price positioning conversations, size and features, market days, updates and appeal. So it's saying these factors combined could contribute to slower. Now, what you can do to take that a step further, if it's a listing that's been shown a bunch and you actually have good feedback, you can say, hey, I want you to take all the feedback that I'm gonna upload, and I want you to incorporate that into some of the reasons you've already listed as to why it hadn't sold. See where I'm going with this? Because when we send our weekly summary to our seller, hey, as a friendly reminder, here's all the comps that we use when we price the property. We had a suggested price of X. We marketed it Y. Here's an executive summary of the feedback, but also here's an analysis of all the comparable properties. And again, it's the data telling them they're overpriced, not their agent, right? I'm just collating the data in a way that maybe gets digestible enough for the seller to be like, you know what? That son of a gun, when he walked in here, he said 275, and it's looking more and more like 275, right? But again, it's not so that you can beat them up, it's just so you can organize all your thoughts that are in your head that you innately know why it's not selling, right? We can fix everything in price. That's the last thing our seller wants to hear. Now I can incorporate some of that. Well, what about that house that sold up the street? I'm so glad you asked about that. What about comparing this house directly with 123 Main Street? Boom. Here's the direct differences. You can upload the photos. You can even upload the seller's disclosure for their property and your property and say, well, analyze the seller's disclosure. Were systems updated? Were there issues with it? Was there nothing disclosed? Maybe the fact that nothing was disclosed is keeping you from being able to sell a property because first time home buyers don't know what they're walking into. They see that it's a flip, but they don't know what kind of flip, right? And then you can go in there and start adding some of your own dissertations or your own intellectual property that you know, because chances are you've probably shown or looked at some of those other houses. Well, when I walk through 123 Main Street, it smelled like cats. And oh, by the way, there might be feedback in mine that says it smells funny. Now it can say that, but guess what? Those aren't your words. Those are other people's words coupled with the data, right? Go ahead.
I like, number 3 right there, it just talks about why some properties have sold quickly, there are active listings with comparable days on market, so like, boom, right there, what's that telling me? Houses around this price point are selling quickly, but there's some active comparables with similar days on market that are still lingering. Well, is that a potential? Do I need to look at inventory? Is inventory starting to accumulate right there, or is this, an isolated situation? It goes on to say, however, properties with updated features and more space tend to sell faster. Well, if you go back up to the summary of the subject property, it probably says something about it being updated. So we're updated, but we're not sold yet. So what did it go on to say? So 2 things there. Are we not updated enough? Are they not nice updates?
Maybe they're comparing the finishes.
More space. which we can't do anything about that. So if our updates aren't up to par with the ones that have sold quickly, and we can't make more space, well. All directions point the same, right? It's price. So, and it's kind of vague right there, so days on market, it says quickly, how quick is quick? Related to number 3.
So, how AI works, when you're just talking about Canva and Google, here it is on my screen.
Did it work?
No, I mean, it just pops up, it is a app that you can add to it.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Just because it's on the
free one?
Well, I pay for Canva, but if you, it says explore Canva for Google Workspace, so you can add,
Yeah.
and that would make it even easier.
So I just said, tell me more about number 3 with respect to days on market. Boom. CMA provides insight into how quickly similar properties in the area are selling, revealing a trend where homes with specific characteristics such as larger size, additional bathrooms, or notable features tend to secure offers more quickly. Here's a breakdown of the relevant data. Active listings. Among active listings, the average days is 24, with a property ranging from 12 to 40 days on market. Active listings in higher price bracket, 259 to 285, with additional features like larger square footage or additional bathrooms are staying on the market for about 2 to 4 weeks before drawing interest. Pending listings. The pending listings in the analysis show faster movement with the days on market averaging around 8 days. So hey, when we met, we said we thought we'd get a contract in 2 weeks. We're at 2 weeks. The ones that have pended in 8 days, we're still active. Again, we can start dumping more of that thought back towards how can we adjust, right?
Oh, and it's referencing specific addresses, which is cool.
It's giving you specific addresses. So then when you send this, so now what if I took all the above?
Summarize it so it's easier to understand. Like, how many listings was in this report?
25.
You did last 6 months.
90 days. So please take all the above and summarize it in a table that is easier to understand. For discussion with my client in consideration of lowering the price on the subject property. Thinking. Sometimes you can ask it trickier questions. I don't like when it spends too long now. Give yourself. I've asked him to do a big job. And if it doesn't give you the feedback you want, it may tell you that you didn't ask the right question. Huh, look at that. It's now interactive too. So here's a table summarizing the key comparative market for the subject property. This should aid in discussing price adjustments by clearly contrasting the property's active, pending, and closed in terms of price, size, days on market, notable features.
I'd say provide a brief summary in an email format to accompany with the table. Sheridan's nice, it is. I'm not as nice sometimes.
Just in case AI takes over.
What's that? Yeah, right.
Just in case.
I want myself a credit score job.
Right.
Well, like when you're going through those offers and not getting the answer you're looking for, and it's plainly in the offer. I've had that. It's drove me nuts. And sometimes I'll even say, why are you having a tough day? And then it'll clean it up. It knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's wild.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So to Brittany's point earlier, she was talking about how to maybe deliver certain news a certain way, or even how to say it.
I'd be interested in that bathroom situation, but that's a conflict for a later time. Were all those one bathrooms?
No. That's why I included it.
Did it point anything out about that above this?
Basements. I think in one of them it said bathrooms about the appendix. Yeah, properties that feature two bathrooms.
There we go.
So an email. It's giving me suggestion prompts. Hadn't seen that. How much should we reduce the price? Based on the comparative market analysis, price reduction between 5 and 10,000 can make the listing more appealing without drastically impacting the perceived value. Here's the rationale behind this range. Now, you may not choose to use all that, but it may give you some things to include in your rationale as to what number you want to suggest,
I
right?
would say, does this suggestion change considering the showing volume seems significantly low compared to others at this price point?
Then probably either. Then if you had your showing data, you could pop that in there, right? So again, it's as good as the data I'm giving it, but I could give it the showing data for this listing versus the showing data of other listings that I've taken in a similar price range. Now, to go a step further, you used to be able to, through showing time, pull the historical doors open report with the Supra. Y'all remember that? You remember we used to be able to pull the Supra, show the opens, how it compared. You could upload that and say, based on how other people are showing, right? And this is where we had fun with it, because like, I don't know what all I can get out of this, but I can keep feeding it stuff and it may start telling me stuff that maybe that's what we talking about the rabbit hole. Because while we're sitting here talking, I was thinking, well, I used to be able to pull data for doors open. Well, based on doors that were open last week compared to how many times my door got open, how do I stack? That'd be important for the seller to know, right? Well, Mr. Seller, here's all what I've done, right? Because then what I could do is I could put in the marketing efforts that we've done, right? We've hosted X number of open houses, we've ran this many ads, we've had this many sign calls, we've had this many showings, right? So again, I've kind of notated or allocated my activity, right? My inputs, and now I'm trying to whittle it back down to, hey, Mr. Seller, I've done everything I can do. It's time for you to do what you can do.
Here's everything we've done, here's what we're doing, here's how the market's responded. What are your thoughts? And a lot of times, you give them enough information and value, and clarity, like, they'll end up where you want to take that conversation. Because the writing's on the wall, and it's not you giving an opinion, it's a matter of fact as it relates to the market.
Did you say that you can get the information about other, like how many doors were open? Like, is that something?
You used to be able to do Supra. I don't know if you can in showing time. I haven't looked at that lately. But any kind of data that you can get, I'd put it in here.
Well, Super, we switched over to Century,
Yeah.
so that's the challenge there.
So look, I asked it for, based on everything I talked about in the last email. So everything I've asked it since, please provide a new email. Following up on our previous comment, I'd like to take a closer look at how adjusting the price is performing in the current market after analyzing recent data and noting that our showings are significantly lower, right? I didn't tell it to pull that, but I asked it about showings being lower. It included that in the email, right? So they know the showings been lower because they get the notifications, right? Feel like we're not being shown that much. Well, I asked it, I led it into that, and it innately figured out to include that in the summary, which is pretty sweet. I want to offer an updated pricing strategy to help increase and expedite the sale. Market context, recommended price range, attach the summary table compared, right? And it's got the summary that's attached to it. So again, how long would it take me to wordsmith that email? Now I can go in there and say, hey, paragraph 3, add this, take this away, and it'll boom, spit it back out.
And then all I'm doing is copy and pasting, just make sure you change your name and client's name, right? You don't wanna put that
And
in
then you
there.
can ask it, you know, what the activity's been, well, you did the search based on when this one went live?
Mhm.
Yeah, no. I was gonna say, you could ask it, you know, what the activities, the comparable activities been like since you went up to the market. To see, you know, your competition, what's went under contract, then you can evaluate those a little more in detail, okay? This one got our contract over us at the same price, why? And if the same element keeps coming up over 3 or 4 different listings that got a contract, then. You realize, hey, ours doesn't have this. What do you think we should do, Mr. Seller? Well, you can't add more space, so. Really just leaves us with the other option, adjust the price, improve the price. Words are strong.
Yeah.
Let's do a test, we got a few minutes here. What's something, as y'all been sitting here listening to this, that you'd be curious if you could do?
The only thing that I keep thinking about is, so you get out of that and you go back in, how do you find that exact same thing? Have you named it or?
It names it for you, now you can come over here, so like listening summary discussion. I could rename that to.
And of course, this is only in the paid version,
I believe
I
so,
would think.
I don't know about the free.
It'll save your stuff on
That you want to pay for that.
Yeah, I don't know about like how much it'll save or keep.
it'll save your stuff. I don't know that you can attach stuff on the free.
So adding attachments to it might be something that's up and upcharged.
I would not pay for it when I first started using it though, until I really started using it, and it was worth your time that, I mean, I.
I mean, if you use
I
it,
use
that's
it.
valuable.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
If I
And
can be
it-
smart
what
enough to
amazes
retrain
me
me
how
of
quickly
it.
it spits stuff
Oh,
out
yeah.
there. I mean, it doesn't even have to sit there, you don't have to sit and wait on it, it's there. And then all you do is go down there and copy it, and you can put it in whatever format you want to.
What's,
Does it have a download version? Like, cause some of that stuff, it would be hard to copy it.
some of the the only ones that I don't really care for as much is like
That, yeah.
these.
But yeah, you can download.
But you can download it, I just don't know I don't know if I had to have a certain thing open or signed into for it to come out.
Well, sometimes if you don't do it right away, like if you refresh the page, go back up there, you can download that table. Sometimes it just, you know, there's a little delay. Just look at it, yeah.
People that learn how to leverage this will be so far ahead. That people that like it won't even. If you see anything that's for that, you'll have to learn how to leverage it.
But if we figure that out. I will have to, I'm not signing for there, so I'll have to. Let's test drive, y'all got me excited to try something, what y'all wanna do? Let's test it, see if we can break it.
Create charts.
What kind of chart?
I don't know, we would have to probably upload the like average days on market for like everybody. Last year versus this year or something like that. I mean, you can find that in the MLS, but.
You may have to export the MLS data. You could definitely get it.
Alright, talking to it, Dustin,
Oh, Lord.
I'll be your finger.
Uh,
You wanna see for a specific property type,
I
We
would.
can do that.
single family? Status of closed,
I go active pending closed. You said,
last year over this year.
I was just trying to see if we could generate like a line graph or something like that.
so I just, make sure pending. I click that over to date. Arrows. Anywhere you want. I'll just go ahead and copy that and paste it in all the other ones. I've done it a few times, try to make it as quick as possible.
It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
And city. Alright, so it looks like,
It's not gonna work now. You can only export 5,000.
we take active off and just do pending and close.
And we just do close. Nope,
Dude, like Nicholas.
there you go. What about G-Town? There we go.
Alright, now what?
3 dots. Do you have a? Like a export saved?
And it's not logged into Excel, we can try it though.
Oh, you don't need Excel, go to custom text export. Give me it all. Here you go, you got one.
Anything else?
Export.
Oh, shoot, boys, I did, 2023.
That's what you want,
Since
since,
last year and this year.
I was gonna do year over year, so January 2024 to. So that's ever since January 2023.
Mhm.
So I can go. Alright, that's what you're saying, now I can just tell it to do it.
Mhm. I'd say just have a little bit of fun with it, tell it to identify the type of data. Organize it and provide a summary. For analysis, yeah.
So I just uploaded that whole big thing. And just said,
Now, that's the only challenge is it's got all the columns possible that you can put in there from the MLS, it can get a little squirrely here.
nah, it's talking me through what it's doing though, with the light.
Oh, yeah. It would even like code stuff for your website if you wanted.
Oh, yeah, I see, dude, that's so,
Yeah,
that's so cool.
What is it do?
like coding for your website and like if you want to plug in certain stuff, like you don't have to learn code anymore.
Yeah, they're using it to, it's coding websites for itself.
So-
Like creating other websites by
So
itself.
let me do it next. So
I would say, clean up the number formatting, and provide a more detailed analysis that's easier to understand.
There was one I saw. It needed another program in order to carry out whatever prompt it gave it. So it suggested the program and then they gave it permission and it plugged in the program to itself. And
That's
they
it.
used that program to finish the prompt also.
That's wow.
there we go. That'd be some good stuff to be able to put out there.
Tell me a little more about these properties. Or what factors might, no. Tell me a little bit more about the properties that. The growth in terms of percentage, price per square foot. All that. Growth by percentage.
Here,
Uh. You put comma included but not limited to. Price per square foot. Age of home, so yeah, size of home. Is that what you mean by area?
geographic area.
For subdivision. Age, put age on that.
Talking you through how it's analyzing it, which I like, because. If I'm trying to start analyzing big data sets, I need to think like how the computer does. So if I tell it what I want to get, and it tells me how it's gonna get there, I can remember or notate what it's looking at to get to the answer that it wants, so then I can remember that for future prompts. Right, so when I'm running this again, right, so you don't want to just do it one time. But if I learn, okay, when I asked it to do this, this is what it looked at. It may look at things that I didn't even think to look at, so then I can incorporate that into the next time I ask it. Based on the way it's looking at it, so. It's looking at year over year performance for each factor, price per square foot, geographical home size, age of home, primary bedroom location.
What did you say was the average price on?
Increase from 340 to 366. Total property sold declined from 740 to 618. Again, those are both year to date. So it corrected itself, closed date, sold date. Average profit per square foot increased by almost 5%. Average home size grew by 5.2%, so a little bit bigger homes are selling. Average lot size decreased. Average age of home sold in 2024 are slightly newer, with 3.5 reduction in average age compared to 2023. Primary bedroom remained, no significant trend detected as properties in both years had minimal cases of primary bedrooms located on the first floor. That's primarily because most people who have first floor primaries are probably not getting rid of them. Fair? Most people that have them don't get rid of them because they need them, and so then what would be another question you could answer?
Well, what can you do with this information?
He was talking about the chart.
Right, yep.
You make a chart comparing year over year for data for use on social media. Oh,
Ooh,
sure.
wow. Okay.
I'm just really curious how we. Take that.
So the thing that's cool, we didn't know what he was gonna ask. But as we walk through it, you can kind of say, okay, now that I know we can do that, let me take it a little further.
Let's pick a better chart or graph. Pick the best chart or graph to display the data for relationship.
So it's gonna do a couple of them.
Could probably get rid of the average lot sizes, right, skewing it and not giving us a whole lot of options. Maybe just focus on average. Price per square foot, year over year, average price year over year. Something where the X and Y axis can.
I'm just having fun with it, but this is stuff you could ask them to do.
SP to LP, seller paid closing costs. What percentage, what was the average?
So again, it's just walking you through how it's getting there. And that's just reading the export.
So, like, one thing that comes to my mind while that's thinking is, preparing for a buyer consultation. I have one tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I'm not gonna have much time between that and Bold, to kind of prepare, but one of the things I like to touch on during our time is setting expectations for when we go look at houses and, when we go to make an offer, how quickly the market's moving, at their budget and what to expect when we make an offer. Our prices that are positioned well, are they selling at or above asking? Do we need to be prepared to go above asking within a certain amount of days on the market? How realistic is it to expect the seller to cover some closing costs? Or, how many days on market? Is there a trend there? Where sellers are paying those closing costs? Because if that trend only appears for homes or listings that are on the market for 10+ days, then, something at the top of their budget, we may want to wait a couple of weeks before we go look at that one, because I don't want to get your hopes up. Because if you're at 240 and homes at 240 are selling within 2 or 3 days above asking, I want you to be mindful of that. But now if it's on there for 10 days and there's a trend for homes at 240 listed longer than 10 days where the seller's paying on average $5K in closing costs, then hey, let's wait until that gets to the 10-day mark before we go take a look at it. Everything else that's 225, 230, we go look at first day. Because you have the budget available to go above that asking price, whereas if 240 is your hard stop, then we don't need to look at those 240 listings on day 1 or 2, we need to wait on day 10. So that their expectations are aligned for when we actually look at that house, those emotions get going. This stuff, they're not gonna remember every detail, but it's not gonna be brand new to them. So they're gonna be, prepared to offer whatever that looks like. Of course, I'm gonna do a little CMA and send them a range of what I think it'll sell for. But at the end of the day, they're prepared and equipped to make a competitive offer. So I'd be curious, like, if we can reference the original data. Take in consideration, I'm working with a buyer up to $300,000.
Okay.
What would be?
The odds of us finding a house.
Well, what would be, at first, identify that common house at that price point? What are good expectations to set with that buyer during our consult, our initial meeting? And what percent of the list price should they expect to offer to make it, or what are the best expectations I can provide them so that they are equipped to make a competitive offer when a properly priced house hits the market?
This is the same like Google.
What's that?
I use it like Google.
Yeah.
I just got a question, then if they don't give me the answer I'm looking for, just make it a little more specific. Just mess around with it like Google.
Oh, yeah, but some I've noticed too, and it's happened over the past probably couple of years to a decade, is like Google has gotten so muffled up with like just too much information and too much of the wrong information. So like the way I explain this to people is this is like Google on steroids. Like Google, you search something that you want to find out about, you're gonna go to probably three to five of the first links, read through it and take some from that article, take some from that article. It's time intensive, right? This right here is gonna give you the nuts and bolts, starting step 1, and then you can take it, like you said, even deeper down that same road, that rabbit hole, or you can branch off and go to another one.
So all I asked it, using all the data provided,
Knowing that I am meeting with a first time home buyer tomorrow for an initial buyer's consultation, their max budget is $300,000 for purchase / sales price. What expectation should that buyer have going into the home shopping process? Given your client's $300,000 budget, here are some expectations to set based on the data. Average price per square foot and home size. In 2024, the average price per square foot has risen to about $175, meaning that $300,000 could typically afford a home of around 1,700 square feet. I think that's important. Expect to find homes on the smaller side or older homes if they prefer locations closer to the city centers or desirable neighborhoods. Better
Why is that
than
important? Why was that first one important?
well, for when they start asking you about how big of a house they want.
Or when they tell you they're looking for something like 2,000 square foot, okay, great. Are you willing to do a little bit of work?
Well, let's just say. Let's say you're in that consultation, what would keep you from having this pulled up?
True.
Right, okay, I've got all the data. So what questions do you have for me? Well, what if I wanna find something for 2,000 square feet that meets my budget? So how many homes sold in the last,
Oh, yeah, there you go. Sold in 2024.
Okay, but it's using something you've already put in. I'm sorry, I was negotiating.
It's using the MLS data for Georgetown closed.
Okay, so how does it know to do that?
We exported it from the MLS.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
oh, I need that, hold on.
You can edit that. That little pencil.
Thank you.
Maybe what percentage, how many homes / what percentage?
So buyer asked me, do I have anything that's 2,000 square feet in my budget? And it's gonna look through everything given.
Because ask you, when you put a data set in there and you start asking it questions, well, what it does with that data set, that big data set, is it starts shrinking it down. So when you ask something referencing back to the original set,
I didn't put the original, I said all, so that's why it's struggling. So that's important to note. If you upload the big master list, always reference the big master list from the top, right? But it looks like it's getting there. They better get there now.
Woo. 1.4.
So, what you just asked for, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer,
There's a chance.
you're telling me there's a chance, but it's 1.4% chance that we find that. Now, I don't like to play averages, but I might say that might be harder to find. So now I told them what to expect. They've asked me a question based on that. Now there's a 1.4%. Now I'm good, but you told me you need to be in a house. When was that? And so if there's a 1.4% chance that it's happened in the last, what, we've had 30 times 10, 325 days. I got a 1% chance. You need to be there in 3 months.
Where are you telling them you're getting that 1 point? Are you telling them you?
Oh, it's from the MLS.
Yeah, so,
From the
so
MLS?
let's back up. I ran search. All sold homes in Georgetown since January 1st of 2023.
Sure, right there on that flex tab.
So over here. I ran this search, single family closed since January 1, 2023 in Georgetown.
Okay,
I downloaded that. And uploaded it in here, and now I've been asking it to analyze that data. So it has every MLS sold home since January 1, 2023. Now I can ask it anything I want about sold houses since January 1, 2023. In Georgetown, as long as it falls in that criteria.
Okay.
And it's gonna calculate that for me.
What, ask it what the average days on market of those 9 homes were, as well as a range for the price per square foot.
See, day traders are using it.
I don't hear anything.
Analyze all the indicators and then give them buy positions and sell positions.
Using high level like strategies.
Right. The issue with that though is that they're all working on the same algorithm, so they're all gonna be getting the same buy and sell signals.
Unless you're feeding it,
Right,
on your own.
Right.
So the guys that have been doing it for 60 years, if I was a young trader in that scenario, I would sit there and say, hey, tell me why your book performs more than the other. Now, he may be limited to the same thing that Sherry shared with us earlier, like worried, like I'm giving away trade secrets, but at the end of the day, they're gonna get it anyways.
Right.
So you can either try to make a boatload of money right now or let somebody else make it, right? So that's where you could drive it, but nothing would prevent me from saying, hey, here's how I typically analyze this data. Run that same thing through, right? Because there might be certain trends and things they look for and different candlestick patterns and things that they want to pull.
About that.
But now you can teach it to think like you do.
Right.
Now, some people might say, well, I'm eliminating myself, but again, if you're gonna go down that path, you might as well assume that you're gonna get eliminated anyways eventually, right? I'm gonna die someday. So are all my stuff up here gonna go, or am I gonna make the best use of what I got, using the tools?
How does that compare to the rest of the homes that sold at or below?
So his last question was, of those 9 homes that we said there's a 1.46% chance, I said of those 9 homes in your last response, what were the days on market as well as the range, low, medium, high of the price per square foot? The 9 homes sold in 2024 that were 2,000 square feet, priced at or below 300,000. Average days on market 49, low 1, high 196, price per square foot, low $60.50, average 113, high 150.
You see where I'm going with this?
What was your next question?
How does that compare to the other homes that sold at or below 300,000? Cause I wanna compare that against the data set. If I've got a buyer that tells me they want a house that's 200,000 square feet or bigger for 300K or less. Well, we know that there's a 1.5% chance that that's gonna happen. Well, without me telling them, I'm gonna let the data get me there. By comparing the days on market and the price per square foot, because most likely those are homes that are either overpriced and or need a lot of work. If I've got somebody that isn't looking for a project, they want something turnkey, move-in ready, well, guess what? Based on this insight, I can go ahead and have that conversation up front.
And what you could do for visual people, once this kicks out,
Instead of looking at 20 homes and, you know. Go ahead, I'm sorry. So 226 days, some of those are probably gonna be new construction, but as you can see, the average, much less. The hell, the lowest 36. Yeah, right there.
so what I would do is I would take those 9 homes. I'll copy those addresses and put them in Flex and flip them and say, now, are these properties you'd be prepared to make an offer on today? Well, absolutely not. I couldn't move in there with my kids. All right, well, let's revert back to the original conversation around what the expectations are. Houses of this square foot, houses of this bedroom, because again, you've got it all right here.
So you scroll over on that, yeah. No address, but you can punch in that listing number,
Yeah, so give me the listing number, so I can go here. Pop it right back over
go
here.
to a multiple MLS address,
Which one's that?
go to menu. Under search multiple address. Oh, you can't do it there. Apply.
But what I can do now is I can come back up here to those original expectations, which were
For last. There we go.
Well, the original expectations were up there at the top, plus.
There you go.
So,
So homes with 2 to 3 bedrooms, 1 to 2 bathrooms are most likely within reach, depending on the location. Properties with higher bedroom bathroom counts may require prioritizing smaller square footages or areas with lower price per square foot. Homes are moving faster in 2024 with average days on market around 32 compared to 55 in 2023. Homes that are well priced and good condition may receive multiple offers quickly. So your client may be prepared to act swiftly if they find a suitable property. Expectations. With an average age slightly younger to 2024, 2023, they may find a balance of updated older homes and newer homes, though likely on smaller lots. I think that's important. Again, you can say, well, you told me you need a big yard for your dog, probably not gonna get a new house. Primary bedroom location, if having a primary on the main floor is a priority, this may limit choices within their budget. As few homes in the current market offer this configuration in the budget friendly range.
I'd say it's a data here.
So based on that,
There's something I've noticed too about those ranch homes. Sometimes agents will put primary on main, some of them won't. But it's a ranch home, so where else is the bedroom? You know?
and the thing that this has made me realize too, that we use so much data is how important it is to close my listing out with proper information. So that's why the MLS is getting real strict about updating stuff properly and having that in there, but I would say that is our charge to all of our fellow agents, is put the data in right. Because the ones of us that are using the data to make assertions, suggestions, recommendations, set expectations, if the data is wrong, I'm only as good as the data I have. Right, but I just asked it. My new question was. Seller pay closing costs. Given the competitive nature of the market in this price range and the rapid turnover, sellers are less likely to offer concessions such as closing cost assistance, especially for homes that attract multiple offers. However, for the larger homes, like the 9 properties at 2,000 plus square foot, which have a higher days on market, there may be a slightly better chance of negotiating closing costs.
It's just using that based off general knowledge. I would say specifically locate the column with the closing costs / concessions. Interpret that as seller pay closing costs for buyer.
Hold on.
Yeah, consider categorize these as. Behalf of buyer. Percent of the houses paid as well as an average of the amount paid. Within the budget.
Now we're gonna figure out what the percentage of them getting those is.
Let's find the column.
We already established it's a 1.4% chance. The good news is the data would suggest you have a higher likelihood of getting those paid. But if you're not interested in those 9 we just pulled, here's what you'd be looking at otherwise.
And the way that the agents put that information in that specific column is. Some say $500 warranty, some will say just a $5,000, some will say seller PD to 2,500. So did it do a good job here?
No.
That's the problem. 82%? That seems high.
So the 186, now that could be the column we told it to pull from.
That'd be really high.
Yeah, it could be an area thing. Could be a data thing. So that'd be something, if you didn't think that number was, drill down in on it further.
Realistic either.
What is the average pay for the ones that apply? For,
Unless they put in there that there was actually like a home warranty or something like that instead
Yeah.
of closing cost.
There you go.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Which seems pretty in line, about 5,000.
300K, you're talking 2 to 3%. FHA only 3.5% current interest rate.
So again, these would be good things just for you to be thinking about, well, maybe I should talk to their lender and make sure what their lenders told them lines up with what's reality. Because how many times have you all had a buyer go get approved and the lender's like, well, you can do it, but you need to get some closing costs. How much? Right? Well, you need 8,000. Well, if a small percentage of them pay them and they only pay 5, what are we doing about the other 3? Is there down payment assistance options? Do we need to look at a lower price? Do we look at a different area? So things to be considerate of. Again, all you're trying to do is just use that data to keep drilling down on those expectations. And you can see where this allows you to think a little more quickly on your feet. I wouldn't be opposed to having this pulled up with the customer because, I mean, if you were able to pull all that data and they watched you upload that and saw how you drove that data and got those answers, you not think they're going to trust you a little bit more? Now you're not just pulling something out of your hat. I'm giving you real answers based on the data that I've got. And it allows you to make professional suggestions, comments, recommendations, but not give opinions, right? We're not trying to give opinions. Now, I can tell you what I feel like this means. I can tell you what typically I see from my clients get, but historically speaking, on all homes that are entered in the MLS, this is what we're looking at.
And it's not that like people don't trust you, like people that you have good relationships with most likely, you know, on average trust you, but like in the world we live in, it's information overload and everybody thinks they have the answers at their fingertips and they don't realize half the time whoever's on the other end of that website is really just trying to sell them something. So like, it's just furthering our value that we can provide to our people, right? Leveraging these tools, because how many people are doing this? You know, prior to the NAR settlement, how many people were sitting down with a buyer before going looking at houses and doing a formal consultation and getting expectations in line. So anything that's gonna help us provide more value, like it's a no-brainer.
We got about 10 minutes. What questions do you guys have?
So can you ask it, what typical builders today are paying for closing costs?
I think it's a little hairy with the new construction stuff in there, because it has a tough time kind of specifying it, other than the year build. As long as that agent has put that in there with your bill being 2024 and not 9999 or 0.
Yeah. Right.
Spend a lot of time on the MLS. I see a lot of different quirky things.
I had a lender tell of my buyer that they needed to ask for closing costs, because builders are paying closing costs today. He's done several loans where they were, like, he's an idiot.
It's not the same.
And that information is in their head.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so my builders demanded that I ask Bill, and I'm like, he's not gonna pay it, though, okay, put it in.
I wish I could download all this knowledge that Sheridan and Dustin had in their head and upload it up here.
It's that, no, sometimes it's overwhelming. It's not really knowledge, it's just curiosity.
And testing it.
Yeah.
Always.
That's it.
I mean, this is a lot more than I've done with it, but it's been great what I've used it for.
This is probably, honestly,
We've stumped it here.
it's just scratching the surface, cause I'm sure there's a million more levels you can go on it. But this is good enough for me at times, cause I have to take breaks from it. So I've spent too much time in there. It's been a few weeks since I've been on there. I'll ask you something simple, but. Like the Georgetown new construction thing Sheridan had just mentioned, I spent several, a few hours on that and periodically here and there. So it is just a lot, so I try to take a step away. Because, you still gotta lead generate, lead follow up and all that other most important stuff.
Only one property. Yeah. That's about right.
So there was only five analyzed. One of the 5 did it.
You
But we know more
I mean,
than
I don't know
5.
if they're doing it at all.
But we know more than 5 new construction have closed in the past 2 years up there, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, you could take this and keep drilling, there we go, give me a chart if I needed one.
Then you can ask it one neighbor, who's-
You really messed it up. Good network here.
look at regenerate at the bottom. Then you can ask it to identify, not necessarily the builders, because that's gonna be hard for it to find.
Oh.
I would say subdivisions where, oh shit.
There you go.
It's listening to his phone.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's cool.
So, I mean, when you got spare time, free time, you can drill down super deep on this. Alright, got about 5 minutes, what additional questions? If anything, oh, there you go. That put all builders.
Yeah. What else?
And that might have been new construction under 300,000. That's
true, I
still
didn't
following
think
the
about
same
that.
comp of the 300.
Yeah,
I bet you that's it. That was all construction.
data set.
Or if it's more based on that. While it's on that. Any other questions that come to mind? There you go.
Stuff.
I mean, I would say just in generalities, I am seeing more being willing to pay towards it. A lot more people offering incentives of some kind.
Right.
Um,
Well, maybe in Georgetown where there's a lot of building, a lot of competition, but not where they were going.
yeah,
And I mean, in that particular subdivision, he didn't have anything sitting on the market, he was, getting them under contract before he even built them. And I tried to explain that to them, but because that loan officer told them that, they just insisted.
Well. I'm sure anywhere, some people are willing to be flexible, it's creative, as long as, everything goes according to plan, like you can do that in the sense that. The builder gets what he wants, the property appraises for that price, and
Right.
everybody's happy, but, that's kind of a hindsight 2020 when it comes to new construction. Reason why a lot of them don't start building until they got a contract or won't take contingent contracts, right? So to, build in 6 to 12 grand in closing costs for 6 months down the road. And it's looking into a crystal ball.
But they were actually asking for half of them, and I'm like, he doesn't have to even do that.
my opinion got stuff sitting.
Was this helpful?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
And obviously to Sherry's point, I mean, it's just a lot of trial and error. I mean, getting on there and asking the questions it does or doesn't know the answer to. Something, I would say the easiest way to kind of qualify something to use this for would be like, whatever keeps sliding down your list as reason you're not doing it is because you don't have the time or you don't see the inherent like immediate value in it because it's going to take you more time than what's right in front of your face. Be a great thing to ask it. So whatever that might be, pop it in there and say, I'm really struggling with ABC 1, 2, 3. Can you help me prioritize it? Can you help me think through it? Like, how would I process this? How would I do it? And then it may give you some ideas and you can say, okay, I'm going to upload you 4 or 5 things. Here's what I'm gonna do. Can you help me do that? Right? What does that look like? And then you can just take it as far as you want. I mean, it saves it all. So like all this stuff will be here if I ever want it. And it's pretty intuitive. I mean, there's some things we've obviously identified that it's only as good as the data you give it. But if you've got some really good data, put it in there.
Well, it's asking you now what price per square foot is typical. It's asking you questions now.
More builder trend.
That's pretty cool.
Can you go back to your original question that you asked it, like when we started? I'd love to take a picture of that, just to, it was a lot, remember, it was like a big paragraph.
Let's see.
Also a good one recently I used it for was, I've got a Venezuelan client who, connected with, Spanish speaking lender. And of course, she got her pre-approved, but she sent I think the pre-approval in English, but the good faith estimate, the closing costs in Spanish. So, numbers are in English, right? But the actual atomized charge was in Spanish, so I just uploaded an air to convert it to an English document.
Which one specifically? Are you
Yeah,
looking
to
at?
it. So I know, what I'm talking about or what her details are for helping her the best, right?
The biggest limit to this thing is our ability to correct. It's so
What we're doing the year over year.
Yeah,
comparison?
yeah.
like it's
Sometimes less is more, but sometimes, being specific helps too. But like, that little subtlety that I noticed with like when you're putting data sets in there and you start asking it questions and it starts like narrowing it down. And then when you ask it something related to the original, it can't find it. So I noticed that. I was like, okay, I see what's going on. It's narrowing that data down and eliminating it kind of behind the curtain. So now anytime I put data in there, I tell it to always recognize this data set as the original.